The film begins with a group of friends, Luke, Philip, Hutch, Dominic, and Robert, gathering at a bar where they chat about plans for a hiking trip in the Swedish mountains.
Mate, you're never too old for the island, mate.
Tuscany.
Yeah, no, good wines.
No.
Hiking in Sweden.
Hiking.
Yeah.
After leaving the bar, Luke and Robert stop by a convenience store to buy some alcohol while the others wait outside. Inside the store, Luke and Robert are shocked to find the cashier badly beaten.
For fun?
Yeah.
In fucking Sweden?
Having just been attacked during a robbery, a group of robbers is in the middle of looting the place. Known for being timid, Luke hides behind a shelf, too scared to move. Meanwhile, Robert is confronted directly by the robbers, who demand all his valuables, including his wallet, watch, and wedding ring. Robert refuses to hand over his wedding ring, seeing it as a priceless symbol of love and cherished memories. His refusal enrages the robbers, who stab him with a weapon. Luke, still frozen in fear, watches helplessly as Robert bleeds out and dies on the spot. The tragic event leaves the entire group devastated, especially Luke, who is haunted by guilt for not helping his friend in a moment of desperate need. 6 months later, in northern Sweden, Luke, along with Philip, Hutch, and Dominic, finally embarks on the hiking trip they had long planned, although now without Robert. The journey is not just about adventure, but also serves as a tribute to honor and remember their late friend. However, Luke continues to wrestle with overwhelming guilt for being unable to help Robert during the tragedy. Over several days, the group treks through tough terrain, carrying full gear along with enough food and supplies to survive the trip. When they finally reach the summit, they work together to build a simple memorial made from a pile of stones gathered from the area. On top of the stones, they place a photo and a few of Robert's belongings as a final act of remembrance. After paying tribute to Robert, they spend the night at the summit.
I thought we were further out than that. I've said it before, I don't care what anyone said. I remember the last time I saw it.
Yeah, I mean...
By morning, feeling they've completed their hike, they decide to begin their descent. However, the return proves far more difficult than expected. The steep and slippery terrain causes Dominic to injure his ankle, making it hard for him to walk, especially with the nearest exit from the forest being around a 14-hour trek away. Realizing Dominic isn't in condition to cover such a distance, the group begins looking for alternatives. Hutch pulls out a map and searches for a different route. After examining the surroundings, he identifies a shortcut that could significantly reduce their travel time. Hoping to speed up the journey and ease Dominic's struggle, they all agree to take the shortcut. Despite his injured ankle, Dominic pushes himself to keep walking, not wanting to be a burden to his friends.
Thanks, Phil. What a beautiful story.
It's a relic. Strange place to park, isn't it?
However, the mood suddenly shifts when they come across the carcass of a deer hanging unnaturally between trees. At first, they try to stay positive, assuming it might be a hunter's trap. Although disturbed by the sight, they choose not to linger and continue on with caution. As night falls and heavy rain begins to pour, they are forced to look for shelter. They soon notice a tree marked with strange carvings. And not far from it, they find an old, seemingly abandoned cabin. With no other options, they decide to use it as a place to take cover and rest until morning. Upon entering, they're relieved to find the cabin empty and suitable for the night. However, inside, they also discover the same mysterious symbols carved on the walls, just like those on the tree outside. Their curiosity drives them to explore further, and Philip decides to check upstairs. There, he is shocked to find a disturbing figure shaped like a headless human body made entirely from tree roots. He quickly calls the others to come see. Philip suggests that it could be part of some strange ritual or ancient form of magic. Not wanting to risk getting involved with things beyond their understanding, they head back downstairs to avoid further trouble. In the freezing cold, they build a small fire and try to get some rest. But the night turns out to be far from peaceful for everyone. While the group is fast asleep, Luke begins to toss and turn, haunted once again by the horrifying memory of Robert's death. He's abruptly awakened by Dominic's terrified screams, only to find himself outside the cabin with injuries on his body, unsure of how he got there. Rushing back inside, he sees Dominic also shaken and clearly disturbed by a nightmare. Hutch appears visibly frightened too, so much so that he accidentally wets himself from the terror of his dream. Realizing Philip is missing, Luke hurries upstairs, where he's shocked to find Philip naked, kneeling in a trance-like state, worshipping the strange root figure that resembles a human form. Sensing that something is seriously wrong with the place, the group quickly agrees to leave the cabin immediately.
We fucking hurry up, yeah?
No, we don't know that. We do not know that. It's a...
However, as soon as they step outside, they discover more of the eerie symbols carved into the trunks of surrounding trees. This unsettling discovery sparks a heated argument among them as they each try to make sense of what's happening, though none of them has any clear answers. Knowing that arguing won't solve anything, they decide to keep moving forward, unsure if they're even going in the right direction.
Hanging in the trees in the spooky fucking house!
Dom.
According to the map they brought, the path they're on should eventually lead them out of the forest. After a long and exhausting trek, they come across another cabin in the woods.
5 more minutes on this path, and I'm pulling, right?
Not wanting to repeat the terrifying experience from the night before, they decide to keep moving, even though nightfall is quickly approaching. Along the way, Dominic, still struggling with his injury, asks the group to stop for a moment so he can rest. His body is worn out, and he's nearly too weak to continue. While the others take a break, Luke climbs a nearby hill to get a better view of the area. Instead of finding anything reassuring, he spots a massive, unexplainable creature. Something far beyond logical understanding. Overwhelmed with fear, Luke rushes back down to warn the others. He tells them about what he just saw and urges them to keep moving before something terrible happens. At first, the others are skeptical and unsure whether to believe him. To convince them, Luke shows a strange wound on his chest, explaining that it appeared during the nightmare he had the previous night. He suspects the creature he saw might be connected to the mysterious injury. After hearing his explanation and seeing the wound for themselves, the group becomes visibly unsettled and agrees it's best not to waste any more time.
What the fuck is that?
As they prepare to move on, they notice what looks like fabric buried in the ground. Curious, they dig it up and discover it's not just any fabric. It's an old tent that appears to have been buried there for decades. Inside the tent, they find a few remaining items, including a worn-out wallet. Upon inspection, the wallet contains a family photo and expired credit cards dated back to 1984, meaning these belongings had been abandoned for over 30 years without anyone ever coming to retrieve them. Night falls, and the group grows increasingly frustrated. What was supposed to be a 14-hour hike out of the forest via the correct path has now turned into a grueling and uncertain journey. Physically drained and overwhelmed by exhaustion, they decide to rest for the night, setting up a makeshift tent and planning to continue in the morning. As everyone falls into a deep sleep, Luke once again experiences a nightmare, reliving the harrowing moment of Robert's death. But this time, in addition to seeing Robert's face, Luke also sees the terrifying figure of the large creature slowly approaching their tent. The nightmare is abruptly interrupted when Luke is awakened by Phil's scream piercing through the silence of the night. Phil frantically tells him that Hutch has been taken by the creature. Without hesitation, Luke wakes Dominic so they can search for their missing friend together. They can still hear Hutch's screams echoing in the distance and try to follow the sound, but their efforts are in vain. Hutch is nowhere to be found. The situation worsens as they realize they've lost their bearings and can no longer find the way back to their campsite. All of their belongings, including the food and water crucial for survival, have vanished without a trace. They continued their journey despite lacking supplies and proper gear, hoping to finally escape the forest. Their steps came to a horrifying halt when they discovered Hutch's mutilated body hanging from a tree. Although grief overwhelmed them, they knew they had to keep moving.
Is that...
Well, it had to be to put that fucking elk in the tree.
He was hunted.
As time went on, their energy was completely drained by the harsh terrain and endless hiking.
When you can do it.
Eventually, Dominic and Philip, too weak to continue, decided to rest. Luke, determined to find a way out, climbed a nearby hill to scout the area. From a distance, he spotted a faint light, which he believed to be signs of a nearby village. Filled with hope, he hurried back down to share the news with Dominic and Philip. But disaster struck again. Before he could reach them, Philip was abducted by the creature. Terrified, Luke tried to flee, only to hit a tree and injure his head. Nearby, Dominic, who had been hiding behind the trees, called out to Luke in a whisper and urged him to stay hidden. Realizing that staying put would only make them easier targets, they decided to run as fast as they could to get away from the creature. Despite Dominic's injured leg, Luke promised not to leave him behind. He helped carry Dominic through the forest until they finally reached the source of the light Luke had seen earlier, a torch-lit cabin that appeared to be inhabited. Without hesitation, Luke rushed Dominic inside, hoping to find help and safety, but instead of finding protection, both of them were ambushed and knocked unconscious. As Luke slowly opened his eyes, he found himself and Dominic in a dimly lit room, their hands tightly bound. Through the cracks in the wooden walls, Luke could hear voices outside, as if a group of people were preparing for something.
What the hell do they want? What can you see?
Soon, an old woman entered the room and handed Luke a cup of strange liquid. Strangely, she inspected the wound on his chest and revealed that he bore the same mark, a symbol that seemed to link him to the creature. What made Luke even more frustrated was that he was the only one given something to drink, while Dominic was left dehydrated and suffering. Moments later, two villagers barged in and violently dragged Dominic out of the room. Luke could only listen helplessly to Dominic's screams as he was taken away. Dominic was tied to a post surrounded by rotting corpses hanging among the trees. Clear evidence that many had died in this place before. The atmosphere grew darker as the villagers knelt and bowed, appearing to conduct a ritual to worship the creature that was slowly approaching Dominic. It was clear that Dominic was to be sacrificed as an offering to the beast. Meanwhile, Luke struggled and eventually managed to free his hands from the ropes. Just as he did, a woman entered the room, bringing him food. Luke questioned her, desperate to understand what was happening. She explained that the creature he saw in the forest was called a Jotun, a giant moose-like being they believed to be an ancient god, descended from Loki. It was said to grant immortality to those who worshipped it, but in exchange they had to offer human sacrifices to appease it. The woman told Luke that, unlike most people, he had been marked as chosen, and therefore was given a choice. Either worship the Jotun and live forever with them, or refuse and become the next sacrifice.
Did you take him down from the tree?
We worship it. It keeps us here. It will hang you from the trees.
After the woman left, Luke freed himself and escaped the room where he had been held captive. As he made his way through the cabin, he heard a strange rumbling sound coming from another room. Holding a torch, he gathered the courage to investigate and was horrified to discover a group of mummified figures slowly moving. They were people who had achieved eternal life by worshiping the creature. Realizing that no human is meant to live forever and that immortality came at a terrible cost, Luke set the entire room and cabin ablaze, destroying them all. His actions were quickly noticed by the remaining villagers. Armed with a rifle he had taken from the cabin, Luke fought back, shooting several of them.
Fuck off. Stay there. Stay there.
The fire enraged the creature, which emerged from the woods and slaughtered the remaining villagers. Luke ran for his life, but the creature's speed far surpassed his. and he was quickly caught. Strangely, instead of killing him, the creature forced Luke to kneel in submission. When Luke bowed his head, the creature paused and stepped back, as if offering him a role as its servant, someone who would worship, feed, and serve it. But every time Luke stood up in defiance, the creature would try to force him back down. This time, however, Luke had found his courage. Refusing to surrender, he attacked the creature with an axe, enraging it even more. The creature chased him relentlessly, but Luke managed to escape the forest. As he stepped into the open field, the creature stopped, unable or unwilling to follow. Luke, now fearless, screamed defiantly at the creature, challenging it, but it simply retreated into the woods. In that moment, Luke realized he had finally conquered the fear that had haunted him for so long. From someone who once froze in the face of danger, Luke had transformed into a brave man, one who would never again stand by helplessly when his friends were in need, no matter the risk. And with that, the story comes to an end.